Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is League Unlock. In case you're not familiar, that is Mark. My name's Eric, and it's a weekend recap time. We had no LEC, so it was a lighter schedule on the Rift for games, and you always miss when Europe is tearing it up. But they'll be back next week, and we still had plenty of, I'm going to say, a variance of good games to interesting games. Exciting.
Yeah. Usually, you know what, we've had some pretty darn awful weeks when you're just focusing on the LCS, but
yeah,
and this wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I'll say that at the very least, a lot of the games, and even if they were going against the grain, they were fun to watch this week and definitely entertaining for the fan perspective.
And we'll get to ranting about the playoff format in the LCS a little bit later. But we got to start with all the fun stuff that happened in the LPL, because the weekend matches were absolutely insane, mainly because they did not play out how pretty much anyone was anticipating it. If you expected LGD to 3-0 heading into the match against IG, it would be Pick'em's mentality, where you're just picking the most insane scenario possible.
Even heading into that series, I'm thinking, you know what? I really hope it goes, okay for LGD. I hope they are able to steal a win, maybe two. I hope Peanut plays well so people don't harp on him too much. That was what I was looking at in this series, because I had no expectation that LGD would be able to, mount up to the task that was taking down IG in the way that IG had been playing, in the form that they had shown us for at least the last couple of weeks, which is, more consistent stretch than you can really ask for a lot of times from IG. They were looking good, and that was not the level of play that we got from them. And then on the same side, LGD absolutely played all the way to the max in this series, really giving it their all. And you saw that in every single aspect of every single game in this series, picking up that 3-0.
Yeah, and I mean, really across the board, you can highlight pretty much every member of LGD and say, yeah, they had a really good series. Obviously, Peanut is going to get the headlines, 11-1 and 25. That deserves headline material. He completely outclassed Ning, and this is all-pro jungler Ning that we're talking about, who was actually playing really well throughout the majority of the summer split. So for Peanut to come in and just completely smash him in those matchups was incredibly impressive.
Yeah, definitely love seeing that from Peanut. Really good to see him elevate even his level of play and aggression that he was bringing for LGD this year. Elevated it in this series to bring them to another level. And then as well, even having Rookie played. Rookie was probably the strongest performing member on IG, which he almost always ends up being. And he was pretty much the sole strong performing member on IG in every single game of this series. But LGD was right up to the task, took him down, and took down IG with him.
Yeah, and Rookie, a lot of it was he was roaming. It wasn't even lane kingdom. He was trying to help out other squads or other teammates, and it just wasn't going to happen. The 2v2 LGD, Mark had that lane on lock. He was also incredible. Your own namesake was coming up big in this series, and he's looked great ever since he came on to LGD. Kramer was pretty consistent with the Ezreal in-team fighting, and the biggest question mark that we've been saying for weeks now is, where's the Shy? He plays 3 ranged carries in this series, and he finishes with 1 kill across 3 games.
Yeah, this has been, even for the Shy standards and feeling that, he goes through quite a flow of up and down throughout the years, this is certainly a year where it has been the peaks and the valleys for his career and how he's been playing and the form that he's carried in. Because again, as we said, when IG was strong and, Ning's playing very well, Rookie and all these things, it was all about the Shy getting back towards that level of play, being that elite player that he has to be for IG to be one of the top squads. That was not the case this day in the series against LGD. And that will be one of those questions that you'll have to be looking at as an IG fan.
Yeah, and like where is the MVP, the best top laner in the world? Because he had the picks, he had Lucian, he had Kayle, he finishing 0-3-0 on Lucian. He just did not have the impact. It wasn't even a case where he's smashing the lane phase necessarily in those matchups, which obviously you should be with those range tops. So IG, they're down now with FPX hanging out in the regional gauntlet, and I don't know if it's just how it's set up on the Gamepedia site, but right now they have FPX and IG playing in the first round of the gauntlet, which I'm pretty sure means one of them is not going to Worlds. That might change, but the Dream
boy.
Four might not be going for the LPL.
And look, hey, we're talking about the Shy's performance. You better believe that they need the Shy to be performing if they go down into that in that regional bracket, and having to go up against FPX to, you know, fight your way through to Worlds. Look, FPX, even if you're considering Gimgoon or Khan not playing at their very peak, they're still going to provide enough of a challenge that you need the Shy to be stepping up what he gave, what you got from him against LGD.
And the problem for both of these squads, because I think we're both pretty confident that they are still capable of getting close to that world-class level, you're out of time. Like, your next best of, if you don't get it on track for that, you're done. You're out. You can't lose another best of. So it's really not much time for them to figure things out. And there's a lot that needs to be figured out for both of those squads. But let's give the credit to LGD. They were fantastic. They absolutely deserved the win, and I'm excited to see them match up against JDG in the semifinals. The other matchup, not as big of an upset, but people were definitely favoring Victory 5 against Suning, because Suning hadn't, despite their good record, hadn't had the statement win mark. Is V5 statement enough?
I think it's enough of a statement win, but unfortunately, it's not going to matter too much, because picking up a statement win here against Victory 5, and even considering, you know, how highly we think of Victory 5 and what they've accomplished, it doesn't matter much, because your next match is going to be right up against top eSports. So you got to be ready to bring it up.
That's a statement.
Exactly. You got to be ready to bring your play up to a whole nother level right away. So even though you've picked up this statement win and the confidence from it, and, you know, even on the outside, everyone looking in as a community at you now and saying, yeah, that's a win that solidifies Suning as one of these teams that is going to compete at the top so far. There's another step till you get to the top eSports level, right? Exactly. And so this is going to be that series. And this isn't, you know, again, underestimate Suning in this type of series, because absolutely what they did against Victory 5, that level of play, that coordination, you bring that into the series against top eSports, I think you're going to have a chance. But the question is, how much of a percent is that chance against a team that is so great like top eSports and that has had this time? When I look at top eSports and you think about some teams maybe accumulating some rust, having some time off, that's not what I'm thinking about with top eSports and the way that they're going to play. I think that this time off, this rest, this preparation, that is going to be a sleeping giant ready to roar when they step into their playoff series.
I think top, more than anything, almost needed a mental reset, because everyone was talking about them so highly. Oh my God, they're the favorites for Worlds. And it almost looked like they eased off the gas pedal a little bit. They just didn't have... Listen, when you're dominating everybody, it's hard to keep that motivation, even if you haven't won the split yet. But the time off, and now they know Worlds is around the corner, winning their first split title, especially with patches coming in now and the meta changing a little bit, the time off, I think you're right, it's definitely going to help them out. But for Suning fans can now look at these all-pro lists and say, oh, the Shy's on there. Where's my boy Bin? Where's Huanfeng? Where's SFM? Where's half our squad compared to these IG guys who did not show up in the playoffs?
Well, for the most part, it had only been SFM is really the name that a lot of people might have heard from this Suning roster. Had been the one that people had stuck out as the star power. But you're right, everybody deserving the respect on what they had been doing. And as we said, the signature win, it's one of those ones where we're talking to this top esports series and saying, yeah, it's good, but you need more. It still is got to carry some value for, let alone the community, but for yourself personally as a player on this team. You got to have that pride in what you did in taking down Victory 5 and how they did it, and carry that confidence, carry that momentum into this series against top esports, because you're going to need every little bit of advantage, every bit of help that you can get heading in as you take on these even tougher squads towards the championship run.
And for, again, Huanfeng, I want to shout out again, because we've seen a lot of your boy Jin on the Rift, and a lot of really underwhelming performances on him. I'm tired of seeing curtain calls come in and not even be able to break a shield with all 4 shots. But Huanfeng on Suning was popping off on that pick in 2 of those games.
Hey, man, every time we've seen the Jin so far, and my big criticism has been the unfortunate thing that it looks like is the damage isn't coming through in the type of situations you get to these team fights, and all of a sudden, all Jin is able to do is maybe, hey, I'll throw one trap down, I'll throw a Q in there to bounce a grenade, and then I'll root somebody if I land my W.
Hey, he's a CC bot.
But right, other than that, I can't really go in. Everybody else is fighting. Too much frontline exists right now in the meta. But in this series, and Suning and how he's able to play it, man, damage coming through. And as you said, those curtain call bullets, gotta love that damage and those crits coming through. That is what I'm talking about with my boy Jin.
It's such a satisfying ulti when you are actually sniping and doing half of people's health bars. It just doesn't happen that often, it seems like. It's almost more of a slow than actually doing any damage. But the top four in the LPL, even without FPX and IG being there, these matchups are still going to be must-see action when the weekend rolls around. Over in North America, we're not quite at must-see TV yet in the LCS, but man, aren't you happy, Mark, that we had these 7 and 8 seeds, so we got to see these fantastic 3-0s over the weekend? Thank goodness.
I can tell you who is absolutely thrilled that we had these teams in the playoffs is TSM and Evil Geniuses, because look, we can talk about the second chance, of course, is what they really do enjoy, but having those level of teams, the level of play that they were bringing into the playoffs, getting that chance against these squads is absolutely that second life, that second breath that you needed, that chance to reset yourself and prove yourself again.
You know what Dignitas was for TSM? They were like when an NBA player starts a game 0 and 8 from the field, but then they get to the line, they get some free throws, they get to see the ball go in the net, and they're like, all right, found my stroke. That's what TSM's hoping Dignitas was. Just they're a couple free throws, really. And I think Dignitas, you saw on the Rift, TSM, they didn't play amazing by any stretch of the imagination. If they played better teams, this wasn't going to be a 3-0. There were many head-scratching moments that Dignitas did on the Rift, so maybe you get a bit of confidence from TSM, but from the outside looking in, I have no more faith in them after this series than I did before.
It's one of those ones where you look at it and you're like, kind of like, okay, so how many points do you want to give out of 10 for TSM moving forward out of this series and what they did? And you're looking at the level of competition from Dignitas, what Dignitas did on the day, how poorly and how much you needed to see changed from TSM, given the Golden Guardian series. You can give them maybe 2, 3 out of 10. 4 is really pushing it as far as credit you want to give them from this series, because it is something I want to talk about where, yes, there were positive changes. There were, stuff that you can really look at TSM individually and the individual players and say, better performances, stepping up from what we had. And again, yes, very low bar against what Golden Guardians and what you did, but you still need to accept the results and what you did here. And that is what we've moved forward with TSM in this series. Yes, a little bit better and little things that I'm feeling more confident about. But certainly that performance against Golden Guardians, what you did and how much it's going to knock you down as far as people feeling, confident in picking you and what level of play you're going to get from this TSM roster, there's still lots of work to go. And it's going to take at least another series or two. And at that point, well, you're already fighting for your spot into Worlds. So it's going to be interesting to see how TSM moves on through.
Yeah, and it's a big next step for them against the losers of the next round. They're finally going to actually play, not finally. I think Golden Guardians is a good team. So they're going to have to play another good team. Dignitas, come on, they were 5 and 13. The lesson there is let's get Johnson a new team for 2021, right? That's what we learned.
It was pretty awesome to see a series where you saw in game one the amazing footwork, the hot hands of Johnson, manning to dance around all those skill shots. That was great. And then you saw, game 3 just walking right onto the Caitlyn trap. So, hey, it's a two-sided coin, and that's how it's going to be when you're playing the game.
Yeah, he's got to learn. It's still early on in his best of career, but we need to find him a place to grow more so in 2021, because it is the end of the run for Dignitas. The other side, you had Evil Geniuses versus 100 Thieves, and now Johnson's not actually getting much flack for that one play, because when you look at what he did in all of 2020, especially the summer split, you're like, this guy could be an all-pro AD carry in the LCS. He was the lone bright spot spot at times for Dignitas. Some of the 100 Thieves players are getting a lot more flack than him. We're talking about Poom and Ryoma in the mid lane. And listen, Ryoma was definitely outclassed hard by Golden Glue in this set, and there's questions whether or not he should be on this roster. But much like Johnson, can we get him in someday on a team? Someday. This guy's still at a peak level, it seems, and he's just wasting split after split on this 100 Thieves roster. It's so sad.
It's one of those ones where, man, like, it feels bad because I think he should maybe leave North America, right? Because
yes.
and this is not about someday in any way. This is about North America. This is about what teams he could possibly get on here and what he has been on here. Because you're looking at how he plays, the level of play that he brings almost week in, week out, and what he can do and how hard he can carry. And you're just like, man, this guy deserves better than what he has been getting from this 100 Thieves organization. And yes, he is absolutely does share part of that responsibility, being on this team, being that big member. But there's only so much, obviously, one person can do in a team game like League of Legends, especially the way it's gone and developed in the past couple of years. Man, it felt bad watching this series because he was certainly trying his very darndest, and it wasn't to any avail against Evil Genius.
You got to imagine tons of these LCK squads would and should be interested in someday, even playoff teams towards the top of the table. Listen, Rascal's been good on Genji. Doran's been all right on Dragon X. I probably want someday over them, right?
Again, that's one of those ones where, yeah, they've been okay. There's potential. There's things that you can talk about, the positives for those players. But if you're looking at an apples-to-apples type of situation, someday has to be considered an upgrade for those squads and those teams the way he plays. But, man, hey, still getting that nice check from 100 Thieves, and if he's happy there, I'm not going to argue with that. But as far as the performance is going, I think that he should have a little bit more of an argument with 100 Thieves about, hey, look, man, I've been holding up my end of the bargain for pretty much 3 years now. It's about time that you guys surround me with a squad that can do their part too.
And maybe we should have more faith in the Papa Smithy. It's just his first year, still time to develop. The Ryoma experiment, I think it's safe to say, didn't work out. Fully expect a new mid laner for 2021 on 100 Thieves, but we'll give him more time. It was just his first year.
That's one of those ones where I think, yeah, you can give him more time, but it's one of those questions on whether that more time should be spent at this organization, at this spot, right? As far as trying to do the very best for you and trying to do the very best for yourself situation.
So same question for Evil Geniuses, who of course actually won the series, that we had for TSM. Any more confident in them after this series? At least they went to 5 games and played a competitive series against FlyQuest beforehand.
Yeah, I think the series against FlyQuest is part about preparation. I think is really how they ended up losing that series and finding themselves behind so much early on. Yes, execution is obviously part of it, but when I think it is the preparation. But when you look at this series for Evil Geniuses and moving forward, and yes, how many points can you give them from this one? I'm going to give them more points in the TSM one because I think, yes, they showed more against FlyQuest, but even more so in this series, I think they looked more in command. And especially when you looked at Evil Geniuses and what they wanted, and when they changed out Jizuke from the mid lane and brought Huni into the top lane with Golden Glue, you were looking at finding those, pop-off performances from Huni, him to carry on those signature champions that he plays on, that identity that you want to play around, someone solid in the mid lane, then with Golden Glue. Difference of style. And it absolutely is one of those ones where, look, it can work and pay off, and it did this week. And that's what I want to talk about, the positive of seeing that and seeing it work out. Because I know Huni is more of a coin flip than he's ever been really in his career as far as what you're going to be getting, and especially in the playoffs. But it's one of those ones where, look, if everything lines up in the way it gets and he gets one of his, type of champions that he's comfortable on through, he can pilot it well enough that it's going to be a menace during these games, and the rest of Evil Geniuses are responsible enough and talented enough that they can push themselves across that finish line and take down your Nexus. So certainly everyone else here should not be underestimating the Evil Geniuses.
Probably more confidence in them even than TSM going forward. There was also LCK over the weekend, and it's not playoffs yet. There weren't any huge marquee matchups. That's going to happen this week, which is finally the final weekend or week of regular season action. You had Damwon 2-0ing again. DRX struggled against Soul Prince, but which is kind of crazy. They still won 2-1. But I want to just really talk about Damwon versus T1, which is on Thursday. But first, I got some Damwon stats for you, Mark, because we got to update them in terms of speed running. So now their average game time is up to 28 minutes average. 28 minutes. Only 3 teams in the summer split of any region have faster game times than them. That is 17-0 Unicorns of Love from the CIS, 2-16 Royal Club from the TCL, and 3-12 YDN Dreamers from an EU minor region. This is the LCK Damwon's playing in and speed running through, not a minor region.
Yeah, we're not even talking about comparing it to the other major regions. Again, we're talking about the LCK, the historically slowest of all the regions and how they get to their game time. And man, the speed run boys, the cardiac kids of Damwon, I love watching them play. And man, you better believe headed into this big time showdown against T1 on Thursday is your match of the week. It's the match of the month. You gotta be in on this one, because I'm telling you what, both T1 and Damwon are going to be in great form heading into this one. We've nitpicked at T1, and we've needed to see them have a bit of this resurgence compared to the top of the LCK, especially Damwon pushing the form that they have been. And I think, of course, yes, the quality of opponents might not be the ones that you want to be judging it against, but absolutely with Closer in the lineup and the way that the rest of the team has performed, big time turnaround and bump in performance for T1. And my expectation is they're going to slot Granddaddy Faker back into the lineup for this one, big boy. And
is he there right out of game one? Do you give Closer a game?
Oh yeah. I think Closer is there. I think Closer, you're going to hold on to Closer as possible substitute type of situation, but nope. I think you roll with Faker right out of the get-go. I think this has been all about prepping Faker, this time off, everything with the team, getting everyone the comms sorted out. I think now is the time to slot in your prime jewel.
Damwon's game score, by the way, is so good with only 5 losses. Even if they go 0-2 versus T1 and then 0-2 versus KT, and T1 goes 2-0 against Damwon, 2-0 versus Dragon X, Damwon still finishes higher. That's how ridiculous their game score is right now.
Man. I love it. They've been so dominant the way that they have played. And look, of course, players like Nagari and Showmaker get all the attention that we want to be talking about. But absolutely, Ghost and Barrel deserve some props on what they've been doing in the bot lane. And again, it's one of those ones where you might still have some question marks. You might still look at them as the one part that you might want to attack type of thing, prepare for. But at the same time, this has been a bot lane that has stood up against the likes of Death and Carry, has stood up against Teddy and Effort before. They've gone up against some of the best bot lane duos, let alone in the LCK, but around the world. And they have answered the bell so far this year. So it's going to be interesting to see heading into this again, this rematch against Teddy and Effort and the rest of T1, how they're going to stack up, because that is the one that a lot of people like to look at outside of the star performing players for Damwon.
My advice to T1, ban Nidalee. Don't let Canyon touch it the whole series. That's it today for League Unlocked. My name's Eric here with Mark. Thanks for hanging out. We'll catch you guys and gals on the Flippity Flop.